Some fairy tales don't end with a royal wedding. Sometimes, the real story only begins when the palace walls begin to shatter. Prepare yourselves, because this is definitely not your typical regal romance. We are dropping straight into the middle of the most suffocating, jaw-dropping courtroom drama imaginable. The entire nobility is gathered, the murmurs are frantic, and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. There stands our gorgeous empress, looking absolutely breathtaking and dignified in a striking red gown, while the emperor stands nearby with his new, delicate-looking lover. The high priest asks the ultimate question: does she accept this divorce without objection? And the way she just calmly, coldly states that she accepts it. Absolute queen behavior. The emperor actually has the nerve to let out a sigh of relief, and his mistress is already smirking like she won the prize. But hold on, because our empress is playing 4D chess. Before anyone can even breathe, she drops the ultimate bombshell. She is requesting permission to remarry right then and there. The sudden look of pure, unadulterated shock on the emperor's face is deeply satisfying. He completely loses his mind, demanding to know who she could possibly be marrying. And right on cue, the doors swing open. In steps this incredibly handsome, confident blonde man with a breathtaking smirk, casually asking if it's his turn to come up. She looks right at her soon-to-be ex-husband and declares that this is the man she's marrying. Iconic. But okay, how on earth did we even get to this point? To understand the drama, we have to rewind to a few months earlier. Our empress is just trying to have a peaceful day when her ladies-in-waiting burst in, absolutely furious and bursting with scandalous gossip. Apparently, the emperor went hunting and came back with a mysterious, filthy woman who looked like a runaway slave. And the absolute audacity of this man. He actually ordered the empress's personal ladies to bathe her. The servants are totally offended, but they warn our queen that beneath the dirt, this new woman is devastatingly pretty, and the emperor is already completely infatuated with her, doting on her and worrying over her health. The ladies-in-waiting are instantly on high alert, sensing danger, but our precious empress remains calm, trying to convince herself that her husband is simply acting out of pure pity. Oh, sweet girl, if only she knew. Okay, the sheer nerve of this girl is actually sending me into orbit. So there they are in the garden, and instead of showing a shred of royal protocol, this woman just casually smiles like they're old friends. Navier, being the absolute epitome of class, literally doesn't say a single word. She just turns on her heel to walk away because, honestly, why should she waste her breath? But then, oh my God, the girl actually reaches out and grabs Navier's stunning red gown to stop her, ripping the fabric. I gasped out loud. Laura instantly snaps, yelling at her for being so unbelievably rude. The girl immediately turns on the waterworks, stammering that she's sorry, but she just didn't know how to address the empress properly. Laura tries to school her, telling her to mind her manners because she is speaking to the literal empress of the Eastern Kingdom. But then this girl drops a line that makes my blood boil. She's like, "Oh, I know she's the empress. My name is Rashta." As if her name is supposed to mean something to the crown. She literally beams, saying how glad she is to run into Navier because she was wondering when she'd get to meet her. The absolute delusion. Navier is just standing there thinking, wait, is she seriously expecting me to call her by her name? Keeping her composure like a true professional, Navier just coldly says, "Just call me your majesty." That should suffice, and turns to leave again. But wait, it gets so much worse. Rashta falls to the ground crying, sobbing about how mean everyone is, and right on cue, like he was waiting in the bushes, Emperor Sovieshu appears with his guards. He immediately demands to know who is being called filthy, and runs to scoop Rashta into his arms, comforting her right in front of his actual wife. The way he glares at Navier is actually heartbreaking, but our queen just stares back, completely unfazed, noting to herself that Rashta is definitely a lot more manipulative than the ladies-in-waiting realized. Navier signals her ladies to leave, completely ignoring the toxic display, but Sovieshu actually has the audacity to bark. "Stop right there, Empress." He demands that Laura apologize to Rashta. Navier steps in, fiercely defending her lady, pointing out that Laura is a high-ranking noblewoman, but Sovieshu points his finger and says Laura needs to apologize to Rashta, to him, and to the Empress. And the way Navier looks him dead in the eye and just says, "No." Absolute chills. Okay, the awkward tension is officially off the charts. We cut to our royal couple having dinner, which, by the way, they only do once a week. The atmosphere is dead silent until Navier decides to just cut through the polite nonsense. She calmly drops the bomb, asking him point-blank if it's true that he found a slave girl near the hunting grounds. You can literally hear the sharp clank of his silverware hitting the plate. Sovieshu completely freezes, tries to act casual by taking a bite of his steak, and then has the audacity to snap back, asking who told her that. Navier is totally unfazed. She's like, "It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is whether it's true." And oh my God, his reaction. Instead of just giving a straight answer, he gets totally defensive, getting visibly irritated and telling her not to press him. He actually tries to guilt-trip her, saying they only see each other once a week, so they should talk about other things. The deflection is so real, it's painful. Naturally, Navier goes back to her chambers looking completely downcast. When she relays his excuse to her ladies, that the girl was just a commoner caught in a hunting trap, they are absolutely not buying it. One of her ladies, Laura, is completely fumes. She boldly points out that if it was just about treating injuries, why is he acting so suspiciously defensive and forbidding anyone from bringing it up again? She even drops the ultimate truth bomb, saying these are the exact same irritated signs her own father showed when he first started having an affair. The sheer panic and rage in the room is unmatched. After sending the furious Laura out to calm down, Navier is left alone with her older lady-in-waiting, Eliza, and finally lets her guard down. She admits she feels this strange, hollow emptiness inside. They've been engaged since childhood and married for political stability, never sharing a passionate, head-over-heels love story, but this still cuts deep. Later that night, Navier goes for a walk to clear her mind, only to overhear the palace staff whispering about how peculiar it is that the stoic emperor is acting like this. She tries to ignore the gossip, turning a corner into the gardens when suddenly she spots her. The mysterious woman is right there, looking completely ethereal in a white gown. Their eyes lock, and the girl actually has the nerve to smile and casually call out, "Hello there." I am screaming. The drama is officially heating up. The absolute disrespect coming from the throne room right now is making my jaw hit the floor. Sovieshu actually looks Navier's lady-in-waiting, Laura, dead in the eye and commands his guards to lock her up for 3 entire days. Laura flinches in pure terror, and Navier steps in instantly, completely appalled, telling him he is going way too far. But Sovieshu just glares back like a total villain, claiming Laura deserves it because she dared to call an injured woman filthy. To save her mistress from further trouble, Laura bravely cuts in, trembling, and says she will accept the punishment. The sheer satisfaction on Sovieshu's face as he dismisses her and pats Rashta's head is enough to make anyone seethe. Later on, Navier is summoned to the emperor's private quarters. She walks in with pure regal elegance, asking why he called for her. Sovieshu doesn't even look up at first, casually sipping his drink, before launching into a lecture about how she needs to start taking care of Rashta instead of sending her away. Can you believe the audacity? Navier firmly tells him that Laura's actions weren't out of line and that punishing her further is completely wrong, especially since she already took her punishment. But Sovieshu just grits his teeth and snaps, asking why she can't just obediently follow his orders for once. Navier keeps her composure perfectly, explaining that an empress is a co-ruler, not a servant who bends to the emperor's whim. And then, oh my God, he actually says it. He turns around and barks that it's because she acts like this that she can't even compare. Navier clenches her fists, her heart breaking a little as she asks, compare to whom? But instead of dealing with his toxic behavior, she just coldly tells him she's tired and bids him good night. Meanwhile, Rashta is back in her room playing the ultimate sweet, innocent angel. When Sovieshu walks in, she's clumsily trying to act like a maid, claiming she wants to help out around the palace. Sovieshu is completely charmed, telling her to sit down and eat pumpkin pie with him instead. As they eat, he starts comparing Rashta to Navier, noting how Rashta gets ecstatic over tiny things like pie, whereas Navier never shows that kind of happiness no matter how many priceless jewels he gives her. Rashta subtly fans the flames, acting meek, and suggesting that because the Empress lived a life of luxury, she probably takes everything for granted. The manipulation is so quiet, but so deadly. Sovieshu just caresses her hair, completely under her spell, calling her his clever little prey. Then, Rashta brings up the ultimate topic, making her his official concubine. She notes that the Empress still doesn't know about it, but Sovieshu just smirks, telling her not to rush and that he has it all beautifully planned out. I am throwing hands. Our queen deserves so much better. The audacity of this girl is reaching astronomical levels, and I am officially losing my mind. We pick up right where we left off, and Rashta has the absolute nerve to approach Navier, batting her teary eyes, asking if the Empress hates her because they are not sisters. Navier stands there, her face a mask of cold perfection, and reminds her that they were never sisters to begin with. But Rashta, completely missing the concept of boundaries, looks shocked and whines, "But you and I share the same husband." I felt my soul leave my body. The sheer disrespect of saying that straight to the Empress's face. Navier's eyes flash with a dangerous glare, and with an icy calm that gives me literal chills, she simply commands, "Get out." Cut to Rashta running back to her quarters, absolutely sobbing her eyes out to her new staff, crying that the Empress hates her just because she was told they aren't sisters. Of course, the palace rumors spark up instantly, with the servants whispering about the obvious tension. When a noble comes to visit Rashta and gently tries to explain that the positions of an empress and a mistress inherently oppose each other, Rashta completely plays dumb. She genuinely acts confused, repeating that they just share a husband, and even proudly admits she said that exact line directly to Navier. The noble literally facepalms, thinking, oh God, why? Honestly, same. Thankfully, our queen gets a much-needed break from the toxic palace drama. While taking a walk outside, she notices large, beautiful feathers drifting through the air, and suddenly, a magnificent, giant bird flaps its wings and lands right beside her. It is absolutely huge and gorgeous. Navier gently pets the sweet creature, and her ladies-in-waiting completely melt, squealing about how adorable it is. Navier notices a small, rolled-up note attached to its leg. She opens it to find a message from a foreign guest visiting for the upcoming New Year's celebration, admitting they wrote the letter after having a few too many drinks. It is so chaotic, but incredibly charming. Her ladies instantly urge her to write a reply, and Navier can't help but smile, finding the whole thing deeply endearing. She grabs a pen, scratches out a sweet little response explaining that the bird flew to her, and attaches it back to the bird's leg. The bird even nuzzles her hand before taking off into the sky, and Navier watches it fly away, softly wishing for it not to get lost. But hold on, because the final scene just completely raised my heart rate. We follow the bird as it flies across the kingdom, soaring over the palace walls, until it finally lands on the arm of, oh my God, that incredibly handsome blonde man from the premiere's flash forward. He takes the note, reads Navier's reply, and sports the most breathtaking, swoon-worthy smirk. He looks up at the sky, and softly murmurs that he guesses he'll have to be smarter than his own master if he wants to see his queen again. I am screaming. The chemistry is already off the charts, and they haven't even met in person yet. Who do you think this gorgeous blonde foreigner is? And how fast do we think he's going to steal our queen away from her toxic husband? The sweet relief of a harmless distraction never lasts long in this palace, does it? Navier is back indoors with her ladies-in-waiting, and they are all eagerly chattering about that magnificent bird, wondering who it could possibly belong to and hoping it brings back another reply. But reality comes knocking immediately. Since Sovieshu is putting intense pressure on the palace to find ladies-in-waiting for his precious new mistress, Navier takes it upon herself to host a tea party with high-ranking noblewomen. She looks absolutely breathtaking, but the topic she has to introduce is incredibly awkward. She directly asks the room if anyone is willing to step up and serve the emperor's new concubine. The entire room goes dead silent. You can literally feel the tension as the noblewomen sip their tea uncomfortably. Finally, one brave lady speaks up and voices what everyone is already whispering behind closed doors. The rumors are everywhere that Lady Rashta is actually a runaway slave. High society nobles possess a massive sense of pride, and they flat out refuse to degrade themselves by serving someone of that background. They declare that if they agreed to be her ladies-in-waiting, they wouldn't even be able to show their faces in public anymore. The tea party ends in a total standoff, leaving Navier completely exhausted as she flops onto her bed. Thankfully, a sudden tap at the window changes everything. The giant bird is actually back, perching right on the window frame. Navier instantly rises, her face lighting up with genuine joy. The bird brought another letter, and this time the mysterious foreigner writes that now that they are sober, they think they are much smarter than the bird. It's so playful. Navier giggles and quickly scribbles back a reply, teasingly asking if they are still a little bit drunk and asking for the bird's name. Her ladies are just so happy to see their queen finally having fun as she sends the bird flying back out into the sky. But of course, right on cue, a knock at the door ruins the mood. Sovieshu struts into her chambers, and Navier can barely hide her irritation, noting that he's been visiting entirely too often lately. He doesn't waste a second before coldly asking how the search for Rashta's staff is going. Navier calmly explains the truth. She asked every single lady in the capital, but absolutely no one volunteered for the position. Instead of accepting the reality that his mistress is a social outcast, Sovieshu gets defensive. His eyes narrow coldly as he suggests there must be a specific reason they refused, before looking Navier dead in the eye and accusing her of spreading rumors in high society. Navier clenches her fists tightly against her dress, keeping her temper under wraps, and logically fires back that she couldn't possibly say anything when she knows absolutely nothing about his concubine. But Sovieshu stands up, completely escalating the fight. He slams his hands down on her table with a loud bang, glaring at our queen, and demands to know point-blank if she is the one who started the rumor that Rashta is a runaway slave. The audacity of this man is truly boundless. Sovieshu is officially a lost cause, and the way he is speaking to our queen is making me want to throw hands. He stands there slamming his hands down, aggressively accusing Navier of calling Rashta a runaway slave, but Navier looks right back at him with fire in her eyes. She makes it crystal clear. They are political partners, not lovers, so he needs to stop dragging her into his messy relationship drama. She turns her back on him, refusing to deal with his nonsense anymore, leaving him to bark that an empress shouldn't cry over something so trivial. The absolute emotional detachment from this man. To escape the toxic energy, Navier heads out to her beautiful secret garden to clear her head, letting out a heavy, exhausted sigh. But then, bless this sweet creature, our favorite giant bird suddenly flaps down right in front of her. Navier's entire mood instantly shifts, her face softening as she reaches out to comfort the bird. She completely pours her heart out to it, whispering that this is her absolute secret place where she can cry her eyes out when the palace gets too suffocating. She decides this amazing, comforting bird deserves a fittingly royal name, so she smiles and officially dubs him Queen. She gives Queen a big, warm hug, thanking him for completely lifting her spirits before he takes off back into the night sky. But oh my God, cut to where Queen actually flies back to. The bird returns to the Western Kingdom, and we find out that Queen's master is none other than Prince Heinley, the incredibly gorgeous blonde royal who is next in line for the Western throne. And get this, Heinley is currently lounging around completely shirtless, looking absolutely breathtaking while talking to his blue-feathered bird companion. When he reads Navier's note and discovers she named him Queen, he lets out a hilarious, charmed chuckle, wondering how she could possibly name a guy Queen. His advisor bursts in, completely exasperated because Heinley was supposed to be out scouting the palace properly instead of casually strolling around. But Heinley just gives this devilish smirk, telling his advisor to trust him. He is so deeply intrigued by our Empress already. Back at the palace, Navier is sitting outdoors trying to get some peace, but Rashta just has to come over and ruin it. Rashta sits right down on a chair, completely ignoring palace etiquette, and tries to play dumb, whining that she just wants to be closer to the Empress. Navier looks at her with total disgust, pointing out that Rashta is literally sitting on her personal handkerchief and demands that she leave. When Rashta keeps pushing her fake innocence, Navier completely shuts her down with an icy, savage reality check, telling Rashta that when the Emperor eventually takes his next concubine, she can go try to befriend her instead. The absolute mic drop. Rashta freezes in pure shock as Navier tells her that she is merely the concubine the Emperor will take after her, leaving Rashta completely stunned as Navier walks away. Of course, Rashta immediately runs straight to Sovieshu to cry about it, and later that night, Sovieshu storms into Navier's chambers like a complete madman. He slams the doors and demands to know why she is being so cold and hostile towards Rashta. Navier stands her ground perfectly, asking if he ever saw the previous emperor disrespect his empress like this over a mistress. But Sovieshu is so blinded by his infatuation that he looks at Navier and says the most hurtful thing yet, calling her a completely cold-hearted person before slamming the door and leaving her visibly tottering in shock. The chapter ends on the most infuriating note possible. Rashta is back in her bed, literally pounding her fists with joy and giggling, because the servants are gossiping about how loudly the emperor yelled at the empress just for her. She is absolutely thrilled by the chaos she's causing, while our poor queen is left alone in the dark, her heart heavy with the weight of her husband's betrayal. A late-night knock on the window brings back the only source of pure joy left in this palace. Navier opens the glass to let sweet queen inside, discovering a hilarious new note from his mysterious master. The letter reads that, while he agrees to the name, Navier needs to remember that this bird is actually a male. Navier chuckles, holding the bird close, playfully asking him if he was offended that she didn't realize he was a boy. Her ladies-in-waiting just watch in adoration, noting that Queen acts so comfortably that anyone would think he owned the room. As the days blur together, the highly anticipated New Year's celebration finally approaches. Honestly, thank goodness, because it means Navier and Sovieshu are so busy preparing that they don't even have to receive guests together or look each other in the eye. But there is one crucial international guest arriving who demands a formal royal welcome, Prince Heinley of the Western Kingdom. Rumors have been swirling about him everywhere, particularly regarding his behavior and his jaw-dropping good looks. The second his carriage arrives, Navier realizes the rumors did not exaggerate his appearance at all. He is absolutely ethereal, looking like a total Prince Charming with a presence so captivating that just standing silently in a corner could cause a social frenzy. He steps forward, reaches for Navier's hand, and smoothly greets her with, "It's a pleasure to meet you, my queen." "Wait, my queen." The literal boldness of his words makes Navier give him a sharp look, but she politely replies, wishing him a wonderful stay at the palace. Prince Heinley just gazes at her with total adoration, smoothly replying that he already loves it here. Later that night, the rain is pouring down outside when Queen suddenly taps on Navier's window again. Navier opens it up and immediately gets another note. The message reads, "I've arrived at the palace. Do you know who I am?" Navier lets out a small laugh and quickly writes back, teasing him by saying she doesn't have a clue. But looking at the soaked bird, she realizes his master sent him out in this terrible weather just to play games. She asks Queen if his master is completely heartless for making him fly through a storm just for a ridiculous bet. The poor bird instantly starts shaking and panicking, trying to defend his master, which is just too adorable. The letter she pulls from Queen goes on to outline the stakes of the master's game. "Shall we make a bet? The one who finds the other person first will be the winner." Navier reads it aloud, wondering what the prize could possibly be, which makes Queen perk up with intense, excited chirps, pointing frantically at the note. Navier decides it's way too dangerous for him to fly back in a downpour, so she gently tells him to just sleep in her room for the night until the rain stops. Queen freezes in absolute shock, looking completely flustered, but he behaves and tucks himself in. When Navier wakes up the next morning, she blinks and turns around, only to find the bed completely empty. Queen is already gone, having slipped out quietly into the early morning. Suddenly, a knock sounds at her door, and she discovers a final piece of rolled-up parchment left behind. She unrolls the final message answering her question about the bet's reward, and his master has written, "Queen is the prize." Navier is left standing in her chambers, staring at the letter with a completely flustered expression. His master actually left a hint, explicitly stating that he is a man, confirming all her suspicions. Before she can even process the implications, a knock sounds at the door, and her maid breaks the news that Prince Heinley is waiting right outside. Talk about perfect timing. Navier steps out to greet him, and the moment their eyes meet, he smoothly moves in, takes her hand, and holds it with a devastatingly handsome smile. He leans in close, casually asking if he is bothering her, calling her queen. Navier quickly pulls her hand back, keeping her composure, and points out that he isn't bothering her at all. She asks what brings him to her quarters, and Heinley, with a charming grin, requests a personal tour of the massive imperial palace because he's afraid he'll get lost. Navier initially offers to send a maid, but Heinley bows deeply, making it clear he wants her to guide him personally. The way he keeps boldly calling her queen makes her suspect he might actually be the bird's master, though his tone is a wild mix of sweet and haughty. Not wanting to create a diplomatic incident with the Western Kingdom, she agrees and asks him to follow her. As they stroll through the palace grounds, Heinley keeps the conversation flowing smoothly, asking if she has visited the Silver Gardens. But of course, the peaceful atmosphere is instantly ruined by a high-pitched, overly familiar voice. Rashta comes bouncing into view, gushing that she is out for a walk too, before dropping a massive, uninvited greeting. The second Rashta locks eyes with Heinley, she gasps out loud, completely starstruck, exclaiming that he looks exactly like a prince from a fairy tale. Heinley introduces himself with a polite bow, but Rashta just keeps squealing about how this is her very first time meeting a real prince. She eagerly asks if she can join them and show him around, but Heinley glances at her, completely unfazed, and smoothly declines, stating the Empress is already giving him a wonderful tour. When Rashta pushes further, suggesting the three of them go together, Heinley shuts her down completely, saying that 3 is simply too many. The absolute satisfaction of watching him brush her off is unmatched. He turns back to Navier and says, "Let's go, Queen," leaving a very rejected Rashta standing in the dust. Once they are out of earshot, Heinley pouts, putting on a hilarious act and asking Navier why she's being so cold to him. He even whines, asking if his face looks swollen or if he isn't handsome enough, despite dressing up extra stylishly today. Navier can barely handle the absurdity and lets out a genuine chuckle, telling him he looks perfectly fine. The conversation turns more serious as they walk. Heinley reveals his true thoughts about the Eastern Emperor, calling him a deeply strange man for turning away from a perfect queen. He firmly grips her hand, admitting he would much rather attend the upcoming New Year's party as the queen's personal guest instead of the emperor's. Navier reminds him that the official invitations have already been sent out, but Heinley playfully suggests just scratching out the emperor's name and replacing it with hers. Later that evening, after the tour concludes, Navier receives another secret visit from the real queen. She reads a playful note asking if she is still looking for him, and she attaches her reply, writing that she is looking for his master diligently and hopes to meet him at the party. She notices the bird turning around shyly when she mentions he's a male, and she laughs, patting his head before sending him off to deliver the message safely. But as the first day of the grand New Year's party arrives, a heavy rule looms over the palace. The emperor must enter the venue side by side with the empress. The chapter closes on a tense note, with the entire palace staff whispering in absolute shock as the guest list leaks, leaving everyone asking how a mere concubine could possibly be permitted to attend the prestigious New Year's party. Beya zepa erobe elya m. Deraveo kratkoi esa emenaperisheu, uemya enya ujaya esta yeri erazeba o esodeya ersha. Eni ya ga el ave yeru 11 izepa ero shaya eloga o esobesh chaya eni ya. The morning of the New Year's celebration arrives, and apparently there's no actual law stopping a concubine from attending, which means Rashta is technically allowed to show up, as long as she's introduced by a respectable, noble family. Cut to Rashta getting ready, looking absolutely radiant in a stunning gown, while Sovishu comes to escort her down the grand staircase like she's already royalty. He's all smiles, asking if she was waiting for him, completely soaking in this little fantasy of his. Meanwhile, the actual nobility is gossiping up a storm. A group of noblewomen whisper about whether Rashta will even be allowed near the party, since attendance is usually reserved for established families. The drama doesn't stop there. Word starts spreading among the guests about Prince Heinley, who just strolled into the venue looking devastatingly handsome with a drink in hand. The whispers escalate fast. Apparently he's known as a total player, rumored to frequent more than a few questionable establishments, and everyone is placing bets on who he'll end up flirting with tonight, joking that since he's an eligible bachelor, it might not just end with a one-night stand. Someone even points out that marrying an Eastern noblewoman could be politically beneficial for him as the future king of the Western Kingdom. Heinley, completely unbothered by all the staring, just raises his glass with this devilish little smirk like he's already won some game nobody else knows they're playing. Back with Navier, the social knives come out almost immediately. A noblewoman sweetly asks if it's true that the Empress sent that woman a gift, and Navier, completely thrown off, has no idea what she's talking about. The rumor spreads like wildfire. Apparently everyone heard that Navier personally sent Rashta a welcome gift to celebrate her becoming a concubine. Navier's grip on her glass tightens as she flatly, icily denies it. No. The noblewoman backpedals, stammering an apology, claiming she just heard that woman herself talking about it. Rashta, completely shameless, is out there literally taking credit for a gift that never happened, probably to make herself look more accepted by the Empress than she actually is. Navier keeps her composure, simply saying Rashta must have misunderstood something, but the damage to her reputation is already spreading through whispers and snickering glances. Then the real tension kicks in, the dance. Tradition dictates that the only person allowed to ask the Empress for the first dance is the Emperor himself. And since everyone assumes Sovishu will obviously dance with Rashta instead, Navier resigns herself to the humiliating reality that no one will ask her to dance at all. She'll just have to sit this one out alone while her husband twirls around with his mistress in front of the entire court. Devastating. But then, completely out of nowhere, a hand holding a single red rose appears in front of her. Prince Heinley, looking like an absolute dream, kneels down dramatically and asks if she's an excellent dancer, practically begging for the chance to ask the Empress for the first dance himself. Navier is stunned silent for a second, processing the sheer audacity of what he's doing, breaking royal protocol in front of everyone. But she takes the rose, and with a small, genuine smile, says, of course. The dance itself is gorgeous and weirdly nostalgic. Heinley jokes about whether she'll be able to keep up, and as they move together, Navier can't help but flash back to her childhood, dancing clumsily with young Sovieshu, both of them laughing at their own mistakes. Those innocent moments feel like a different lifetime now, and the contrast hits her hard. Heinley notices she's finally looking at him properly, and teases that he dressed up even more handsomely tonight specifically, because she ignored him last time. The whole ballroom watches as they move flawlessly across the floor, completely stealing the spotlight from the emperor and his mistress. As other dancers start swapping partners mid-song, Heinley uses the moment to quietly bring up the nasty rumors circulating about the gift to Rashta, letting Navier know he's already aware of how fast and how cruel palace gossip can spread, and that he, personally, doesn't believe a word of it. It's a small, genuine gesture of loyalty, and Navier thanks him for it. Then partners get swapped for real. Some random noble asks to dance with Navier, while Heinley ends up partnered with someone else for a moment, before they naturally drift back together since they've apparently been each other's go-to-dance partner since childhood. But the moment of peace shatters instantly. Sovieshu storms up, absolutely furious, growling that it can't be Prince Heinley she was dancing so intimately with, accusing her outright, demanding to know what she thinks she's doing, and warning her that as the Empress of the Eastern Empire, she'd better not smear its honor. Navier, completely blindsided by his sudden aggression, tries to explain that nothing inappropriate happened between her and the prince, but Sovieshu isn't having it. Practically losing his mind with jealousy, he refuses to admit to. And just as the tension reaches its peak, Navier, pushed to her absolute limit, snaps and accidentally blurts out the wrong name entirely, gasping out Rashta, instead of whatever she meant to say, completely stunning everyone within earshot. The entire ballroom goes dead silent after that outburst, and Navier is left utterly mortified, while the whispers around her immediately spiral out of control. Did she really just call her Rashta? He left the gathering already. Do you think it's true that he prefers the concubine? The damage is instant and brutal, and Navier can practically feel her reputation crumbling in real time. Prince Heinley, ever the gentleman despite the chaos he just caused, insists on personally escorting her back to her room, casually joking that he was worried she'd get lost since the palace is so massive, earning a small, embarrassed reaction from her. Once they reach her door, he gently checks if she's okay, and Navier, swallowing her pride, simply says she's fine before thanking him for walking her back. He tells her to rest, and the second that door clicks shut, she finally collapses against it, completely drained. But the night isn't done with her yet. A familiar knock comes from the window. Queen the bird has returned, sensing she's upset as always. She holds him close, admitting that he always shows up exactly when she's feeling low, and quietly thanks him for it. Then her lady-in-waiting, Eliza, drops some unsettling news. A man from the Verdi family came by to say that Viscountess Verdi no longer wants to serve as Navier's maid, and apparently she's been borrowing money lately too. Navier is immediately concerned, wondering if something serious happened to her. We then jump to the second day of the New Year celebrations, where the social warfare continues. Noblewomen gossip about the expensive blue silk dress Rashta is wearing, snidely speculating that the fine fabric, seemingly gifted by Archduke Lilitian as some kind of bribe, definitely isn't the only thing she's received. Meanwhile, the Southern Kingdom's princess, Suz, is fuming in her own little drama, ranting that she can't stand the Empire's whole concubine system and that it's essentially just glorified cheating, all while practically accusing Navier of trying to steal everything that's hers, one thing at a time. Then the rumor mill shifts to something far juicier. Apparently someone has been secretly exchanging anonymous letters with Prince Heinley himself. The nobles are eating this up immediately, speculating wildly about who his mystery letter partner could be. Rashta overhears all of this and gets a wickedly clever idea. What if she could nudge Navier into using this opportunity to quietly befriend Prince Heinley as his nameless pen pal, without anyone knowing it's her? Rashta reasons that if the rumor turns into something real, Navier's enemies, meaning Rashta herself, could spin it into nasty gossip against the Empress, which would obviously work in her favor. So instead of letting Navier anywhere near the real plan, Rashta manipulates her own maid, Cherine, into pretending to be Heinley's secret letter partner. She coaches the poor, nervous girl beforehand, reassuring her it'll be fine and that if anything goes wrong, she should just claim she was joking. Cherine, completely out of her depth, nervously approaches Heinley and introduces herself, trembling, while he stares at her with a look that's somewhere between confusion and amusement. Heinley, clearly aware that something is off, decides to play along anyway, smoothly telling her that since his real letter partner is someone very special to him, he'll treat her as a respected lady for now too, but warns, with a dangerously charming edge, that if she's lying, he won't know what he'll do to her. Cherine is visibly terrified, but pushes forward anyway, and the noblewomen scheming behind the scenes practically squeal with excitement, convinced their plan to get the prince to fall for Rashta's maid is working perfectly. But Heinley, alone with his thoughts afterward, simply murmurs that it's fine, his expression unreadable, because deep down, he already knows exactly who his real letter partner is, and it's definitely not the woman Rashta just sent his way. Heinley confronts Cherine head-on at the gathering, demanding to know why she lied to him, especially when he made it crystal clear the person he's actually looking for matters deeply to him. The poor girl trembles, stammering a denial, insisting it isn't what he thinks. But then Heinley pauses, narrowing his eyes with a smirk creeping onto his face as something clicks. He realizes Cherine actually knew specific details from the letters, which means someone fed her that information. He calmly asks if perhaps she got it from the person she serves, and Cherine visibly jolts, completely caught. Heinley, now fully aware of what's going on, casually wonders aloud if maybe his real letter partner already knew Cherine was being used as a decoy from the start. When Rashta steps in to explain that Cherine simply got confused by what was written, Heinley calmly counters that he distinctly remembers exactly what he wrote, word for word. So it would be strange for Cherine to forget half the content unless someone literally told her what to say. Rashta, growing flustered, snaps that he's being unfair, accusing both her and her maid of mocking him, and questions whether he's underestimating the entire Western Kingdom over this. Heinley, completely unbothered by her outrage, replies smoothly that Rashta already explained Cherine was just confused. So really, who's underestimating who? He adds, almost teasingly, that surely Rashta wouldn't lie to royalty either. Right. Rashta, cornered, suddenly pulls out a desperate move. She suggests they ask everyone present, since yesterday she clearly recalls telling Heinley herself that she was the one exchanging letters with him. Heinley's expression goes cold as he says he, on the other hand, trusted that someone of Rashta's standing simply wouldn't lie about something like this, and reveals that because of that trust, he's been treating her like royalty this entire time, just like Princess Suz teasingly called him, a human cream puff. The onlookers practically melt at how sweet and patient he's been with her, completely unaware they're witnessing a trap closing in real time. But just as Heinley is about to press further, the tension breaks. He suddenly says it won't be necessary to investigate further, smoothly stepping back from the confrontation entirely, leaving Rashta and the room confused about what just happened. Later, alone in the dark, Heinley's thoughts turn bitter and venomous as he silently questions how someone could be so cruel, fully aware now that Rashta orchestrated this whole charade to drag Navier's reputation through the mud. Meanwhile, Navier is dealing with her own fallout. She can't believe Rashta stooped this low, and her ladies-in-waiting press her, asking if she's truly just going to let this slide. Navier, exhausted, reasons that it isn't worth becoming the talk of the town just to expose a low-ranking concubine's lie. Her maid Eliza chimes in too, gently reminding her how reckless gossip can spiral out of control before they even realize it. That night, Queen the Bird hasn't visited in 2 days, and a worried Navier wonders if Heinley is finally giving up on his game. The third day of the New Year celebrations dawns, and Navier prepares for the final, most important banquet, one reserved strictly for the highest nobility, requiring formal invitations. This year, all eyes are on 2 new arrivals. Grand Duke Kaiman of the Desert Kingdom Rift, a mysterious Magic Academy prodigy that almost nobody knows anything about, and of course, Prince Heinley himself, who has always attracted his fair share of rumors. At the banquet, Rashta, who apparently wasn't even supposed to attend, fueling whispers that Sovieshu must have personally invited her, excitedly greets Heinley, slipping and calling him sister before quickly correcting herself to Your Majesty, laughing off the awkward mistake. The ladies around her immediately start gossiping that the rumors about Heinley being a notorious player must be true, since he's been treating Rashta so kindly right in front of the emperor himself, comparing him to a human cream puff for how sweet he's acting. But the real tension explodes when Rashta, growing bolder, casually brings up the letters again in front of Sovieshu, practically flirting with the implication that she and Heinley have some special connection. Heinley, visibly losing his composure for the first time, slams his glass down and snaps that he's simply pointing out the obvious. How could he possibly forget more than half of what he wrote in a private letter? And how exactly is that overstepping any boundaries? Sovieshu immediately jumps to Rashta's defense, accusing Heinley of disrespecting both her and her lady-in-waiting, and questioning whether he's underestimating the entire Western Kingdom. Heinley, done playing nice, decides to settle this once and for all in front of everyone. He proposes they simply ask the room directly, since yesterday Rashta herself claimed to be his secret letter partner. He explains, with quiet venom, that he trusted Rashta wouldn't lie about something so personal, which is exactly why he's been treating her so generously this whole time. Sovieshu, now defending Rashta directly, tells Navier that despite hating Rashta, that doesn't give her the right to side with Heinley like this, accusing her of believing only the version of truth that suits her over what Rashta has supposedly told him. Navier, pushed past her limit, sighs and finally says it. She cannot tolerate this anymore. The tension in the room turns physical instantly, and Grand Duke Kaiman, a striking white-haired stranger from Rift, watches the unfolding chaos with cold detachment, looking distinctly uninterested in getting involved despite clearly noticing something is deeply wrong. Sovieshu, completely losing control of the situation, declares that Navier has been the one secretly exchanging letters with Prince Heinley all along. Heinley, equally enraged now, draws his sword. The chapter ends in a full-blown duel. Heinley officially challenges Sovieshu to a sword fight to protect Lady Rashta's honor, a darkly ironic excuse, and Sovieshu, completely consumed by jealousy and wounded pride, accepts without hesitation, demanding a guarantee of safe passage should he actually win. Right where we left off, the New Year's dinner just imploded, and Navier is walking away from the wreckage with her head held impossibly high. Her internal verdict on the whole situation. What a mess. That's it. 2 words, iron composure, 0 dramatic exit speech. A true empress. Her aide rushes to grab her hand and urges her to calm down, and Navier lets him guide her out, but she is not done. She turns to Heinley and reminds him, firmly and formally, that he is a guest here, and that both he and Sovieshu need to stop. And Heinley actually backs down. Whether it's because she asked, or because he's playing a longer game, we'll find out. Navier then gracefully declares the dinner concluded, thanks everyone for coming, and walks out. The sound of her footsteps echoing through those grand halls might as well be a power move in slow motion. Once she's out of the room, one of her attendants catches up with her and thanks her warmly for handling the situation so gracefully. But then she asks a question that stops Navier cold, something along the lines of whether Navier knows her. A beat of silence, then a tiny, quiet awe. Because yes, she does know. And that realization lands differently in the privacy of a corridor than it did in a room full of watching eyes. We cut to Navier confronting Rashta directly, and this conversation is everything. She calls her by name. She tells her, calmly, that she had been planning to address this after the New Year's festivities, but here they are. She wants to know, why has Rashta been spreading the story that Navier sent her a congratulatory gift? Rashta blinks at her, all wide eyes and confusion, and insists it's not a lie. She really did receive a gift congratulating her on becoming a concubine. Navier doesn't flinch. She simply notes that she doesn't know what caused this misunderstanding, but she is absolutely certain she never sent that gift. Then Rashta pulls out her next move, asking, in that soft, wounded tone she does so well, why Navier always treats her so coldly. The sheer nerve of this woman. Sovieshu materializes, because of course he does, and asks what's going on. Rashta explains sweetly. Sovieshu, with the energy of a man who has decided his own convenience matters more than his wife's dignity, suggests Navier just let it go. And Navier tells him, with devastating precision, that someone used her name without her permission, and no, she will not be staying still about that. She asks him plainly what she wants, a public correction. The rumor Rashta spread needs to be officially rectified, and Sovieshu needs to take responsibility for it. Then Sovieshu drops a bomb. He admits, very casually, that it was actually him who sent that gift in Navier's name. He apologizes. He sent a gift to his concubine using his wife's name without telling her, let the rumor spiral, watched Navier get humiliated in public, and only admits it when cornered. Breathtaking. Navier, still completely composed, points out that even if it was him, using someone's name without permission is wrong regardless. She says if the problem lies in his actions, then he should be the one to fix it. Sovieshu snipes back asking if this petty behavior is her true self. And Navier tells him plainly that yes, this is exactly what she wanted to say, and adds, coolly, don't speak informally with her, Sovieshu. Heinley watches all of this and has a thought that stops him in his tracks. He notices that Navier can make that kind of expression too. Something raw, something sharp. And he wonders, almost to himself, what it would feel like if she said his name with that same voice, that same intensity. His aide immediately reads his face and asks if he's possibly jealous of Rashta. No comment from Heinley. He recovers quickly, pivots to diplomat mode, and tells Sovieshu smoothly that it seems there's been a misunderstanding involving the Eastern Empress, and he personally will make sure the truth gets clarified everywhere. He will not let this tarnish her honor. Sovieshu looks genuinely shaken. Before anything else can happen, Heinley gets whisked away by his own aide on urgent business, and he breezes out with a casual "see you tomorrow" while being physically dragged off. Cut to Heinley, alone in a quieter space. His blue-haired confidant confronts him. Didn't he say he was going to work on his image? Heinley is unbothered. He says to just let him do what he normally does, fight from the shadows, work indirectly. His companion is exasperated. Why pick the Eastern Empire's emperor as an opponent? Why throw out their usual methods? But Heinley is already writing a letter and telling Queen to deliver it. Queen looks deeply unimpressed and reluctant. Heinley reassures him warmly that he won't get into any trouble and asks him to just trust him and go. And Queen goes. Meanwhile, back in Navier's quarters, her ladies-in-waiting and the vice-captain of the Royal Guard, Artina, are processing everything. The general verdict is that Heinley is completely different from the rumors, far more capable and sharp than anyone expected. One of them notes with great satisfaction that it felt genuinely refreshing when he exposed Rashta's lie in front of everyone. Artina confirms dryly that the nobles who witnessed it are already reconsidering their opinions of Rashta. But will those rumors actually stop spreading? Artina says flatly, they won't. Because Rashta is charming and lovely in everyone's eyes, and the fact that both the emperor and a foreign prince nearly came to blows over her is exactly the kind of story people love to repeat. One of the ladies, Lala, slams the table and expresses her feelings about Rashta in terms that are decidedly not elegant. She simply cannot find more refined words for how she feels. And then, a knock at the door. Navier opens it, and there is Queen. She pulls him into a gentle squeeze and whispers that she missed him. Her attendant notes with amusement that Queen completely freezes every time she hugs him. The bird is overwhelmed, and honestly, same. Queen delivers the letter. Heinley is calling her out. He was willing to lose their bet and reveal his identity, but she isn't even participating in their arrangement anymore. Navier thinks it over quietly, patting Queen on the head, and she writes back. Her response is careful and honest. She's already become the subject of gossip because of Rashta and Sovishu, and she has no wish to drag Heinley into that mess as well. If they ever meet in person, it can only ever be as the Empress of the Eastern Empire and the Prince of the Western Kingdom. Nothing more. Please understand. A new conflict is already brewing. Rashta has learned she won't be attending the special banquet strict limit of 20 guests, 10 invitations each for the Emperor and Empress, no exceptions. Sovishu, ever devoted to Rashta's comfort, tells her he'll ask the Empress to give up one of her seats. She'd already told people she would be there. She starts crying. He strokes her hair, apologizes, and promises to fix it. Cut to Navier. Sovishu arrives with his request. She asks calmly whether it's the pontifex or the chief magician who cannot attend. Those would be the only guests worth inconveniencing someone else for. He says no. He plans to bring Rashta himself. The silence is immense. Navier turns and asks why he's even consulting her when it's obvious he'll do whatever Rashta wants regardless. She walks away. The last day of the New Year's celebration brings the special banquet in the Red Rose Room. Among the guests is a striking man with silver-white hair in rich dark robes. He's from Rit. He approaches Navier and asks if the food is to her liking. She notes, internally, that this time he didn't pretend not to know her. He mentions that in Rit, the king and queen are considered one, undivided. The implication aimed at her situation is not subtle. He adds that it's a pity when an empress can't act freely, and wonders aloud whether things turned out this way because she failed to manage them from the start. Navier thinks it was Sovishu who made Rashta his concubine. So why is she the one who looks pathetic? Heinley appears at her side. He's read her letter and wants to discuss it. Does she truly intend to keep their correspondence completely secret? She asks how he figured out she was the sender. He says she made no mistake. His investigation led him to a former lady-in-waiting of hers who was recently transferred to Rashta's service. Navier is quietly astonished. He deduced it from something so small. She admits, with tired honesty, that someone she'd considered a friend pretended not to know her. Heinley understands completely. So do I, he says. As the prince of the Western Kingdom, he's always surrounded by people, yet he has to be endlessly careful about how he's perceived. He can never speak freely. That's why her letters meant something. She's the one friend who doesn't see him through the lens of power. He asks her not to ignore him if they meet again. She agrees to keep their friendship quiet, but asks the same in return. Then Heinley leans in and whispers something about Sovishu, completely inappropriate, entirely accurate, and Navier laughs before she can stop herself. A nearby guard overhears and looks like he deeply regrets it. In the main ballroom, Rashta glows. Sovishu found her a spot, naturally. She thinks to herself that here, she is protected. No one can touch her. She has become a lady. And then a wine glass slips from her hand, shatters on the marble floor, and the room erupts. Rashta stands trembling over the mess, asking how this is even possible. Somewhere in the crowd, someone wonders, why is that person here at all? The whisper spreads fast. Rashta is a runaway slave. The banquet guests, who were praising her moments ago, are now staring. Someone confirms it out loud. The Viscountess Botherham is connected to the leak. This was no accident. Rashta stands in the wreckage of the moment, shaking. Cut to Navier, elsewhere in the palace, making her rounds on the final day of celebrations. She had promised to meet her friend Laura in the ballroom. The atmosphere feels wrong the moment she enters. Laura pulls her aside. That woman, the concubine, turns out to be a runaway slave. There had been rumors before, but His Majesty had insisted they weren't true. Now it's out in the open, and someone made sure of it deliberately. Navier listens, then thinks, how will things unfold from now on? She would rather not be involved further. She doesn't get that choice. She's summoned, or rather, she arrives to find Sovishu seated with Rashta resting against him, still visibly distressed. The room goes silent when Navier enters. Sovishu asks if there's nothing she wants to say to him. What follows is one of the most quietly devastating exchanges in this story so far. Sovishu tells her he understands she may be angry, but it wasn't appropriate to direct that at Rashta. He describes Rashta as someone born bright and capable, pretty and clever, who never had the chance to shine until she met him. Compared to Navier, who was born into every aristocratic advantage, Rashta as his concubine is none of Navier's concern. Navier absorbs this and says simply, yes, even my husband. Then Sovishu accuses her of exposing Rashta's past in front of Prince Heinley. Navier corrects him without flinching. She only spoke the truth. And then she points out the part he seems to have missed. Managing banquet invitations is her responsibility, and all invitations were sent before Rashta became a concubine. If anyone failed to anticipate this and intervene in time, it was him. He calls it awful. She walks out. In the corridor, quiet and empty, a small sound stops her queen. Heinley is there, looking at her with those perceptive eyes, asking if she's out for a walk. Then, gently, did your husband insult you again? She doesn't answer directly, but she doesn't need to. Heinley says quietly that he should have met her first. If only he'd been born 5 years earlier. He offers to send Queen to her room. She agrees and asks where Queen is. He suggests they walk together to get the bird. There are a few things he's wanted to ask her. Why don't we, he says, and smiles in a way that makes it very clear this man's feelings are no longer entirely diplomatic. We open on Sovishu alone on his throne, turning a golden feather over in his hand, thinking that his life may be sufficient, but he lives like a king. A servant is summoned. In a darkened room elsewhere, a hand fingers a bracelet. Viscount Rochu is called to appear. We see fragments of what unfolded at the banquet. Shadows, a whispered voice saying this is a chance to seize. Someone approaches Sovishu and reports. The Viscount is brought before him and confirms what everyone now knows. In his residence, there was once a slave with blonde hair and black eyes, and he mistook Lady Rashta for her. Sovishu's response is clipped. Viscount Rochu will watch his mouth from now on. The man bows with exaggerated deference. Of course, Your Majesty. The smirk he wears leaving says everything. Cut to Heinley walking Navier to his room to retrieve Queen. She arrives and looks around, puzzled. Heinley, mildly panicked, explains that Queen is shy. If Navier meets her alone, she'll hide. Navier considers this. The same bird that carries secret correspondence between royals is shy. Sure. She asks what he actually wanted to know about Queen. Heinley, with a faint flush, admits he wanted to ask what Queen likes to eat. Navier blinks. That's it. She tells him Queen is an obedient bird who eats whatever she's given. Heinley accepts this graciously and sends her ahead while he fetches Queen himself. Queen arrives bearing a small gift she's apparently been carrying for Navier. Then she lands in Navier's arms, and they have a genuinely sweet moment together, Navier scolding her lightly, Queen completely unbothered. Then Queen flies off toward a figure in the garden. Navier watches. Don't tell me, she thinks. It really does look like him. Prince Heinley, walking with his blue-haired companion. She files this away quietly. Heinley and his companion discuss the fallout. The companion says Rashta's past can't be concealed any further. Heinley is calm. He's been waiting for this opening. Cut to Rashta alone, touching a small piece of jewelry, reminding herself. She was a slave in the past, but she's His Majesty's concubine now. So it's okay. An attendant enters. Viscount Rochu is looking for her. The name makes Rashta freeze. She catches herself almost calling him Lord. The word nearly slips out from old habit, and her mind spirals. If the Viscountess finds out about her connection to him, she'll be humiliated. Why hasn't His Majesty dealt with the Viscount already? She tells her attendant to send him away. He comes back. The Viscount says if he isn't let in, her lady will regret it. Rashta snaps, fine. Let him in. He enters, takes in her elegant room with amusement, and gets straight to the point. He's been ordered to keep his mouth shut about her being a runaway slave. He's been treated like a fool by people who don't even recognize his face. But whether her secret gets out is entirely up to him, and the one who told him to stay quiet was His Majesty himself. If she didn't want this risk, she shouldn't have run in the first place. Then he smiles and adds, even so, he's still keeping the secret about the baby she has. Right. Rashta goes completely still. Rashta fires back immediately. How dare he tell lies? He killed her child. The Viscount looks genuinely puzzled and says the child carries his blood too. Even if it's a slave's child, it's still his grandchild. Why would he kill it himself? He tells her not to see him as an enemy. He saw with his own eyes what happened, and it was obvious who was responsible. Rashta shrinks back. He continues. Why can't she understand that he could be her hands and her eyes? She slaps his hand away and tells him she doesn't need someone like him. He's unmoved. He says her act has its limits. The more the emperor loves her, the more she becomes an example. Other women will try to seduce him, and nobles will send high-born, educated ladies to compete for his attention. She is not a queen. When His Majesty no longer loves her, she goes back to being a slave. He offers his hand. He can help make sure no other concubine ever appears. She asks how. He doesn't know yet, but first she needs to bring him in. Think carefully. Cut to the palace garden. Heinley and Navier walk together, and he explains Queen's eating habits with great seriousness. Queen doesn't like insects. She's picky. Birds from the Western Kingdom are like that. Sorry. She only truly eats what her owner gives her. Then he smoothly pivots. By the way, it's the Queen's birthday soon, right? He catches himself. He means Her Majesty's birthday. Navier raises an eyebrow. He places a hand over his heart and declares himself her closest companion. He stayed past the New Year's celebrations specifically to attend her birthday. Sovieshu appears and spots them. He asks coldly how long Heinley plans to stay, mentions he's heard 2 to 3 weeks, and adds pointedly that the Western King's health isn't at its best. Navier moves to leave first, but Heinley stops her. He wants to discuss something alone with her. He takes her hand to lead her away. Sovieshu watches them go. His aide asks why he's looking at the Empress that way. Sovieshu says His Majesty always steals the people walking with him. The Empress is not someone who accompanies the prince. She is my wife. Heinley tells Navier he should not have hesitated before. He should have been more honest with her sooner. She says all right. He says all right too. Then he turns to politics. Has she ever spoken privately with Grand Duke Kaufman? Only briefly, she says. Heinley explains that the Grand Duke wants to build a diplomatic relationship between Rit and Wall's continent, and has specifically requested the Empress be personally involved if the Eastern Empire agrees. The Grand Duke has spent years here and clearly thought it through. His academy was in Wallau, squarely Eastern Empire territory. Navier considers it carefully. The distance and climate differences between the two continents could make international trade costly. But the Grand Duke has invested serious thought, and the Eastern Empire is well-positioned for new alliances. Worth discussing further. Then the detail that stops her. Even though Grand Duke Kaufman openly mocked her situation before, why does he now specifically want her involved? Heinley tells Navier that Grand Duke Kaufman is someone who will have a diplomatic relationship with their kingdom regardless, so there's no reason to reject his request. He'll wait for Queen's appearance at the next meeting. Then Sovieshu appears and announces he's returning to the palace villa, and asks if Heinley will be joining just the two of them. Navier registers this quietly. Rashta had asked to attend the special banquet too. Should she simply watch, while it's only her and Sovieshu at the villa? She concludes they'll probably go as 3, not 2. Heinley, somewhere nearby, splashes water in quiet frustration. Navier walks alone in the autumn garden, looking composed in her blue dress. Then Heinley appears, calling out Queen. He's surprised she's still here. He explains he thought Queen would come back to him, so he'd been waiting nearby. Navier looks at him. You don't know the way back. He says no, and asks her not to interpret it so literally. He produces a handkerchief, wipes his hand, then holds it out to her. He'll return it after washing it. With this, he says, they can meet again naturally. Then, about her birthday, he doesn't think they can dine together. Am I not allowed to dine with you? His Majesty asked him to go to the palace villa. Ah, I see. He apologizes sincerely. Navier tells him it's all right. She doesn't want to be a burden to him. And Heinley thinks, to himself, it seems he's going to burden her anyway. Cut to Heinley's room. His companion, Linden, eyes a selection of rings and asks why a ring all of a sudden. Queen's birthday. He points out the Eastern Empire is large and powerful and wonders if Heinley is overreaching. Heinley says there's no real imbalance between their positions worth worrying about. Then Linden spots the handkerchief tied around Queen's neck, and his mind quietly connects the dots. He notices the initial on the fabric, N. Queen flies off into the open sky. Cut to the library. Navier in a soft purple dress, browsing shelves. Queen arrives with a knock at the window, still wearing the handkerchief like a small decoration. Navier is charmed. Was it Prince Heinley who tied it on? She holds Queen close and notices something. Queen smells like Prince Heinley. She lingers on that observation a beat longer than expected, then flushes very faintly. Queen eventually flies off, and then there's a crash somewhere. Queen. Cut to Heinley, half-dressed in his room. Linden appears, extremely uncomfortable, and tells him to stand up and at least cover himself. Heinley, completely unbothered, asks directly, was the person he met to return the handkerchief Empress Navier? Linden tells him flatly that right or wrong, it's none of his business. But he adds that he doesn't mind if the prince has a love affair, as long as the partner is not the empress of a major empire. Even an empress from a smaller kingdom would be off-limits. Getting involved in a scandal with the Eastern Empire is another matter entirely. Heinley says not to exaggerate. Linden asks if he can really believe that. Then, most importantly, does the other party even feel the same way? Heinley goes quiet. Linden tells him she's someone Sovieshu is attached to, so he should at least control his expressions around her. Outside, a woman in an elaborate pink dress appears in the garden, white hair, parasol, unmistakably someone of consequence. Heinley is summoned over. She asks why he called for her and whether he has something to say. He turns it around smoothly. On the contrary, what does she want to say to him? She smiles with tearful prettiness and calls him Prince. He responds with cool politeness and tells her she really is a cool lady. She seems pleased. His companion watches all of this utterly baffled. Whatever this woman is after, Heinley gave her nothing, and that for now is all we know about her. We pick up where chapter 19 left off. The white-haired woman in pink ruffles is Rashta, and she's telling Heinley she's been mocked and mistreated ever since the rumors of her past spread. People who used to be civil now openly sneer at her. But Prince Heinley still treats her the same as before, she says, clearly moved by that. Their relationship may be bad, but even so she's touched. Heinley listens, says, "Oh, is that so?" and turns away. If that's the case, okay then. His companion is baffled by this response and asks whether he's being too cold to her. Heinley, walking away, says he has no interest in responding warmly to someone who made a fool of him. His companion confirms he did deliver the letter properly, at least. Cut to the palace villa. Duke Urgi Claudia, identified as a member of the Blue Bohemian Empire royal family and Prince Heinley's closest friend, has arrived. Navier's attendant Laura is excited and mentions he's been spending all day with Rashta. Navier registers this with the same calm she brings to everything unpleasant. Artina reports the fuller picture. When they were together, Duke Urgi apparently encountered a noble who called Rashta a slave in front of her. He punched the man after talking, and Rashta thanked him warmly for it. He says he only responded to someone being rude. Even so, he must have heard about it. Rashta, it turns out, is very confused because false rumors about her are circulating alongside the true ones. Duke Urgi asks her directly if this happens often. Then he says flatly, "Those bastards. What do they think they are doing, calling her a slave in front of her? He should have beaten that person more than once." He says he just came to visit a friend, but thankfully met her first. If he hadn't been there, she'd probably have been alone in that. He adds that he can only guarantee this won't happen again at the palace, but he urges her to solve the problem as soon as possible. He suggests redirecting the rumor rather than explaining it. It's faster. Hand over whoever has been spreading things and redirect it to someone else. Navier, meanwhile, attends the official diplomatic meeting about the writ proposal. The world has 8 continents total, several still unknown, and the rest have no trading relationships between them. Wal's continent, where the Eastern Empire sits, is closest to HWA, where Rit is located, but the journey between them still takes about half a year. That's why it's difficult to commit to a diplomatic relationship. The meeting ends without conclusion. Navier's internal read. In the end, this is something she'll need to handle personally. Afterwards, she stops Grand Duke Kaufman directly and asks why he's recommending her as the person in charge. He says he just wants to know. A few days ago, she treated him like a fool and told him she couldn't eat soup from a bowl alone, yet he's still recommending her. She counters sharply. She still thinks the same way. He smiles despite her tone, which she notices with surprise. He explains, when he was telling stories about Emona and Amoth, the unified king and queen of Rit, she was the only one at the table who truly understood. He only knows a few words of the language, but she spoke it. Is that really the only reason he entrusted something this significant to her? He excuses himself without answering fully. Navier is left wondering. Then a question mark. Someone has appeared. It's Sovieshu, standing at the door. His face didn't look good throughout the meeting. He asks what's the matter. She says his name, Empress, and then very quietly, "Are foreigners your type?"